Thank you, thank you, thank you. So as I said earlier, VBS was truly wonderful this week. We played a lot, we sang a lot, we laughed a lot, and we studied the Bible, we taught stories, we worshiped, and our volunteers gave of themselves to the kids of this community. We averaged just a little shy of 60 kids per night. We had 61 kids Friday night, but a little over 200 ate dinner Friday night. So that was a great way to finish VBS. Our block party was a wonderful, wonderful evening. So you've heard some of the stories that we experienced this week. The kids, as Mickey shared, were truly excited this week. They were excited to hear about Jesus. They were excited to play games with Lois. They were excited to listen to the stories that Nancy taught them. And some of them were even excited to sing. I played Nancy's tech assistant most of the week and made sure her technology worked. Poorly sometimes, but it worked. But on Monday, Nancy asked a question of the kids that struck me as profound. She asked them the question, "What is your soul?" Now, I began to think about that, and I realized that when I was these kids' age, now remember, we had pre-K through 5th graders during this week. Could I have possibly answered that question when I was their age? And I still, as I stand here today, don't think I could have. But that question is profound. And a couple of my favorite answers were this: it's the part of me that makes me me. It's the part of me that will go to heaven when I die. It's the part of me that God talks to. Those are profound answers. And I don't mean profound answers for kids. I mean profound answers for anybody. And this is the way it went all week long. Nancy asked hard questions all week long. Questions I thought these kids would have no hope of answering. And yet all week long, they continued to provide the most profound answers, full of insight, full of love, and full of grace. Thank you again, Nancy. It was wonderful. Another one of these stories that should and must challenge us is the story of the Good Samaritan. Now, those kids today told that story wonderfully, but I want you to hear it from the text that Nancy used. Luke 10:25 through 37 says, "And behold, a lawyer stood up and put him to the test, saying, 'Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?' And Jesus said to him, 'What is written in the law? How do you read it?' And he answered, 'You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself.' And Jesus said to him, 'You answered correctly. Do this, and you will live.' But the lawyer, desiring to justify himself, said to Jesus, 'But who is my neighbor?' And Jesus replied, not with an answer, but with a parable. A man going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he was he fell among the robbers, who stripped him and beat him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down the road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side of the road. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place where the man lay beaten and saw him, passed by on the other side of the road. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where the man was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him. He went up and bound his wounds, pouring oil and wine on him. Then he set him on his own horse and brought him to an inn and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, "Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back." Which of these 3 do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers? And the lawyer said, "The one who showed him mercy." And Jesus said, "Yes. Now you go and do likewise." This story must be powerful to you. It tells you what is required for a permanent relationship with God. It tells you how to live in relationship with God and with others. It also reminds us of how we are to care for one another. As Nancy was telling this story this week, she reminded us of just how important this is. And she helped the kids frame this in a way they could understand. When she came to that first person, the priest, she said, "It's someone like Pastor Tom. Or the preacher at your church." And then she went on and asked them, "How many of you think Pastor Tom would have helped?" None of them raised their hand. Thank you, Nancy. Then, when the priest came by, he actually crossed to the other side of the road so that he did not have to help the man. This was heartrending for me. How could a person who is called to serve God, called to serve the people of God, fail to answer the cries for help from another person? I know as a minister, it's easy to get jaded, to get frustrated, even a little angry when people demand help or abuse the systems we've put in place. Heck, it's pretty hard not to get a little judgy about it. But we are not called to judge. God is the only judge. We are called to love our neighbors as ourselves. Now, we're called to use our brain, sure. But I will tell you flat out, I err on the side of love all the time. Next up was the person who works for the church, works in and around the church. And that person crossed to the other side of the road. The way Nancy explained this to the kids was, "Oh my, I'm late for a meeting." Now, we have lots of meetings at this church, so it's pretty easy to get caught up in the administration and doing things the way we're supposed to do them and get caught up in the need to hurry and the need to pass by. And finally was a man who had no interest, no reason to care, no reason to help this victim of a crime, a Samaritan. Now, if you remember a little bit of your Jewish history, you should remember that the Samaritans and the Jews did not get along very well. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about the people who were taken into captivity in Babylon. You remember that story. The Bible tells us that the Babylonians took the leaders. They took the handsome, the pretty, the smart, and they left the rest. History tells us that the Samaritans grew out of those people that were left behind by the Babylonians. They continued to worship and practice their form of Judaism the same way their ancestors had done. it didn't change quite as much as the Judaism that the Jews practiced in Babylon. And when they came back from captivity, the two branches never reconciled. They were having an argument over who was right. They were having an argument over the right way or wrong way to worship. Does that sound familiar to you? It really should. One example I read about and that I had forgotten the root of was the stories that came out of Bosnia when the Serbs and the Muslims were killing each other. Another story that I grew up with was the battles happening in Northern Ireland as I was a young child and a teenager, with Catholics and Protestants killing each other. This is a disagreement about the right way or wrong way to worship that led to bloodshed. I cannot in my life think of anything that must break God's heart more than God's children devolving to violence over how to worship. This exact same thing was going on with the Jews and Samaritans. They were enemies all over how to worship. And yet this man, as Gwen told us, who was an enemy, helped this man. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was. And when he saw him, he had compassion on him, even going so far as to pay for his treatment. Now, 2 denarii is tough. We can't exactly give that a dollar value today. But a rough equivalent is 2 denarii equals 2 days' wages for an agricultural worker in the time of Jesus. And yet this man, who was under no special obligation, no expectation of providing anything, stopped and helped this poor man. The priest and the Levite, who are called to serve God, called to serve God's people, called to serve God's temple, crossed the street and ignored the cries for help from this man. The obvious question, which one lived out their faith in God for this man? Now, it's easy, profoundly easy, to name the Samaritan. When I got to this point, I began to think about my teenage years. And I remembered a quote. You can't just talk the talk. You have to walk the walk. It is easy to talk the talk. But it is far, far more difficult to walk those words. And that is our challenge. That's the challenge we face today. That is the challenge that our kids are telling us about. I heard story after story after story this week of kids putting this into practice. Helping a friend who fell, putting a Band-Aid on a cut knee, sharing their snacks with each other. These children not only knew how to talk and share the stories, but they put them into practice. They walked the walk of faith, hope, and love in Jesus Christ. And this is absolutely what we, the church, must be doing. You see, going to church isn't enough. Inviting people to church isn't enough. The people in this world need to see us living out our faith, see us walking the walk. That is the only way we're going to share Jesus with this hurting world, is if they see us living it out. One of my favorite quotes, and has been since probably my first semester of seminary, is quoted a lot, but its original statement is probably Francis of Assisi. Preach the gospel and use words if necessary. We are called to live out our faith in our actions, and yes, use words if we have to. Would you pray with me? God, we are called to live out our faith. We are called to live our lives a certain way. We are called to mirror all that you have taught us, all that you have given us. Today, as we sit here, today, as we go out from this place, let your light shine through us. Let us live out our faith in you. Let us live out all that you have called us to be. Let us love our neighbor as ourselves, not in word, but in deed, in the actions of our hearts. Let the world know we are different because of your love. Send us out this week, Lord. Send us out into this community and let us show that we are different. Provide the opportunities for us to show that we are your children. In the name of your Son, Jesus, we pray.